G'day everyone. Well, here I sit again at my kitchen table after a weekend away, and I've been home for probably around about 2 hours now. Yeah, it was a good weekend. Managed to get the toilet built, which I can't begin to say how happy I am about that. It's something so simple, and I've been talking about it, and it's finally done. And it works. Only a couple of bits and pieces more that I need to do out there, and then it is winterized and fully comfortable and usable. And I know that sounds silly talking about a campsite, because realistically, a couple of weekends and the whole thing's packed up and gone, and like it was never there. And that was the whole reason I did things the way I did. Today was really nice out there. It started off very, very foggy, and I did a short of that and posted it. Couldn't see much further than about 250, 300 meters realistically. It was pretty thick, and it hung around for a while as well. Normally it disappears by about 10 o'clock, but not today. But I did manage to actually build something else, and maybe I'll show it later, but it's basically just a pantry that I want to be able to use to store things in, and that's about it. It's not finished yet, so I've still got stuff to do on it, but otherwise, yeah, it's been a busy day. And yes, I picked up a toy on Friday. It's a Ticker 3X 6.5mm Creedmoor, so I had a bit of fun with that this afternoon, testing it out, seeing how well it go, and yeah, it's quite nice. For those that don't know what that is, look it up. I'm not going to say it on here, but yeah, I'm out to 450 meters with it. So, and I was, doing all right. This afternoon, it was very, very hard to actually leave. The sun was out, wasn't overly cold. It was just really pleasant. I was walking around without a jumper on. And this is a jumper, by the way, sweater, whatever you want to call it. We call it a jumper. The wind was just nice. And yes, I know my hair looks like rubbish, but I haven't showered for 2 days, so move on. This is what you look like when you get home from being out bush. And my hands, doesn't look like it, but they're actually got green paint on them. So I still need to have a shower before I go to bed. So now that we've got that out of the road, Chance sort of mentioned me in his video and wanted a bit of a response with regards to the messes that get left on the side of Australian highways. And look, it's funny, we talk about animal or wildlife being hit on the side of the road, but a lot of it happens outside the cities, and I mean a reasonable distance outside the cities. You might get the occasional one or two, but most times, it's happening probably 200 k's outside of a city. And once you get outside Australian cities, you do have big distances to go. Not so much in places like Victoria, where there's a lot of towns within 30 k's of each other, and a lot of that relies on, or a lot of that is based on the old railways. So the old steam locomotives could only travel so far without having to fill up with water again. So when the railways were put through every 30 k's, I don't know what that's in miles, but all of a sudden a town would spring up, and that's where the locomotives would fill up with water and timber and that sort of thing to get going to the next place. And they use railways, obviously, to cart wheat, bags of wheat, and other goods and services that towns needed, or that they were picking up and taking back into the big smokes or the cities. So, you know, it does happen sort of once you get into New South Wales. Like, I've done the drive from Adelaide through to Sydney a number of times, and when I used to go up to Queensland, we used to go through what we call the Hay Plain, which is basically a road, leaves Balranald, and then travels probably around about 200 kilometres. There's no town, very, very few houses, and it all of a sudden comes to a point in the middle called Hay, and basically it's then probably around about 150 kilometre drive through to Narrandera, and if you're going north, then basically West Wyalong, around about sort of 150, 180 kilometres again before you get to West Wyalong. So Hay is pretty much in the middle of nowhere. Well, I mean, I've hit kangaroos coming outside of Balranald heading towards Hay. One night in particular, it was so bad, it was just shocking. The roos were just everywhere. Not very big. They certainly weren't 6 foot. They were probably around about 5 foot, and they were kangaroos. They weren't wallabies. But just the most dense animals. Seriously, just hopping all the way across the road. I mean, every man and his dog who was on the road that night hit a roo. It was just phenomenal, and a lot of it is very dependent on the weather. If you get a lot of rain, they don't tend to come towards the road. If you haven't had rain for a while, you do get those sort of gullies on the sides of the roads which get water, and obviously, you know, you get a lot of green grass that ends up growing there, and thus, you know, if you're in a drought sort of situation, they tend to come towards the road and drink and feed, and that's when they become an absolute menace. The road train's still doing 90 to 100 k's an hour. Everyone else is sitting on about 70 or 80, because you just know you're going to hit something, and your foot is just hovering over the brake the whole time. It's quite nerve-ending, especially when you're sort of talking on the road that's going to go 200 kilometres. So I just ended up basically calling a truckie on the UHF and said, look, mate, I said, don't worry about me sitting up your rear end. I'm going to be following you all the way through to Hay, and I'm not going to be overtaking. I'm just going to sit here. So that way, if he hit anything, he was going to take the brunt of it, and I would hopefully miss most of them. And that's what I did. Basically spent probably the next hour and a half on the journey sitting right behind a semi-trailer, because it was better that than me hitting something, because it would have taken out my bumper. As it was, it took out a headlight, or half of one. It still works, and it took out a fog light. So they do quite a bit of damage, even though they're only small. They're basically all muscle. Yeah, we have what are called bull bars. We call them bull bars. Some people call them cattle catchers. I don't know where that comes from, but you certainly don't want to catch a cow. But yeah, most vehicles have bull bars. Most of the four-wheel drives, most of the cars that do a lot of country driving. These days, the bull bars aren't what they used to be. With all the technology that goes into cars, with, you know, radar, cruise control, and all the other stuff, a bull bar has actually got quite a bit of tech in it these days, and it's a bit like a Formula One car. They have a tendency to if you actually do hit something, no, the car's not damaged, but good luck driving it afterwards. Okay, you just pull off the bull bar and hey presto, you're good to go. Well, that's great if you haven't bent the chassis, because that's what the bull bar's attached to. So, and if you hit a 6 foot roo, you're going to do a lot of damage, even if you have a bull bar. And most of them aren't steel anymore. Most of them are faux bull bars, I suppose you want to call it. They're fake. They're made of hollowed steel, hollowed aluminium. They look pretty, but they don't really. I don't really know why people put them on. But yeah, they're still worthwhile, because if they're going to protect your radiator and your batteries and everything else that's in the motor, then good. But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, my car's got what they call a nudge bar, which I've got, mounted a light bar, and I've got two 7-inch spotlights on the front of it as well. So I pretty much turn night into day, and a lot of Australian four-wheel drivers have spotlights. The old Land Cruiser I had two 9-inch LED spotlights on the front and a bull bar, and that's what you do in the country. There's no street lights. If it's dark, it's pitch black. But yeah, last night I was sitting outside, and it was a funny night. It sort of went from cloudy to no clouds, to cloudy to no clouds, and the stars were just incredible. There was at least 4 vehicles out there spotlighting, and I probably should explain that. Spotlighting is something we do in Australia, and basically the idea is that you've got a vehicle, you've got a driver, most commonly what we call a ute. Americans call them trucks. I don't know why. A truck is a Kenworth or a Scania or a Peterbilt or a Mack, not a ute. A car with a tray on the back. We call them a ute. So yeah, they guys in a 4-wheel drive ute, either a Land Cruiser or what have you. One's in the driver's seat, and then 2 stand up in the back. One of them holds a handheld spotlight, which is generally connected to the car battery, and it throws a spot beam out probably around about 1 or 2 kilometres. They're quite bright, and the other guy's basically holding a rifle, and what they're looking for is eyes. I've done it over and over again, more times than I can point a stick at. I don't really do it that often these days because I can't drive, shoot, and hold a spotlight. So that's complicated at the best of times. So these guys drive around. The car drives around with no headlights on, no parkers, no nothing. The guy in the back with the spotlight shines it around, and it's a very, very quick sweep. So you're not sort of going slowly, you're going quite fast with the spotlight. And basically animals' eyes will light up, no different to the way Chance said with the deer on the side of the road. So basically foxes are red eyes, the sheep are green, and the kangaroos sort of tend to be a bit reddish orange sort of colour. But they tend to stand there, so they're pretty easy to see. So most of the guys around here running sheep, and of course these days what they tend to do is they leave the ram in with the actual ewes. So basically once the ewe has given birth, these days it tends to be twins a lot of the time. Then basically 6 weeks later she's ready to mate again, and so by keeping the ram in with the rest of the flock of sheep, they're basically mating all the time. And normally they have two rams in there, depending on the size of the farm, and so you've always got lambs. And they'll basically take them to market every 3 to 6 months, and then basically just leave the sheep out there. They don't really have to do a lot with them. Some guys do shear them. So I've got where I live in the town that I live in, there's a house not next door but the next one over that actually is what we call the shearer's quarters. So it's basically an empty house. But when it's shearing season, the guys will come in and stay for a couple of weeks and then bugger off to wherever the next job is. And they'll basically do probably around about 200 to 300 sheep each shearer in a day. So, you know, if the farm's got 2,000 sheep, then that's what they'll do. They'll just go out there, shear all day and then come back, and then they're gone. They tend to leave at about 6 o'clock in the morning, and they're not back until around about sort of 5 o'clock at night. So it's a long day for them, but they get paid pretty well. But it's a very nomadic lifestyle. But because the farmers have got sheep, they tend to go out and spotlight, and they will shoot foxes. So anybody who doesn't like that idea, don't ever own a farm and don't ever have sheep, because the foxes will kill the sheep. They've got to eat at the end of the day. Foxes aren't too bad. Cats, worse. We do get wild cats out here, and they're horrifying animals. Oh my God. They are the most vicious, angry, little mongrels that you've ever seen. Whilst you're patting your pet cat, imagine that cat about 3 or 4 times the size, and it just will bite anything that comes within cooey of it. And for some reason, they just kill for the sake of killing. They don't actually eat everything. So the guys who go out spotlighting will take them out within a heartbeat. I don't have a problem with people having cats. Never have. But these wild cats are something else. They're just another animal altogether. So in terms of the dead kangaroos on the side of the road, who cleans them up? Nobody. We don't have councils that run along the side of roads picking up kangaroos. They're just left there. What eats them? Anything from foxes to crows, to basically anything that eats meat will come in and eat them. You don't really want to, unless you've freshly hit a kangaroo, you don't want to eat it. They go pretty messy and smelly pretty much straight away. And to be honest with you, if you get hit by a triple trailered road train truck, generally Kenworth K200s or K220s at the moment, they seem to be bloody everywhere. The T909s, you might see them occasionally, but a lot of the import drivers are tending to run Volvos or Scanias, which are all autos. And when I say auto, I mean literally you could get a 16-year-old to get into a brand new Volvo truck and they could drive it. It's just an accelerator, brake, park, drive, you name it. They're about as simple to drive as a brand new BMW. They're not complicated at all. So, you know, you tend to get the import drivers who come in, and there'll be 4 of them, and they'll just take shifts, and that truck doesn't stop. It stops for 5 minutes for the driver transfer, and that's about it. It will just keep going. The Kenworths tend to be quite popular at the moment. The T220s, K220s. They're a cab over. Very nice truck. And they're basically towing three trailers. And when I say trailers, I'm talking probably 40 foot, maybe 50 foot long. Anywhere from the square box trailers to fuel trailers to seed trailers, you name it. So when one of those hits you at 90 k's an hour and you're a kangaroo, there's not much of you left. So the stomach will certainly get pierced and all the gruesome stuff that comes along there. So yes, we do eat kangaroos here. I've eaten them quite regularly. You can go into any supermarket, Woolworths, Coles, Foodland, and buy kangaroo. It's a commercially grown meat, though. You've got to understand that it's not, there's actually farms that farm kangaroos, and they commercially package the meat and sell it. And it's quite tasty. Very hard to cook. You can overcook it incredibly quickly, but it is absolutely packed full of vitamins and minerals and everything else. It's an incredibly healthy meat. In fact, it's actually far more healthier than what a cow is, or lamb. It's just that some people have that thing that because it's on the coat of arms, you don't eat it. I mean, we eat emu here, crocodile. If it can be cooked, we'll eat it. About the only thing we don't eat is koala, funnily enough. But that doesn't, and that's incredibly illegal. You can go to jail if you get caught with a koala. That's just not on. So yeah, we'll eat pretty much anything. We'll give it a go once. So yeah, hopefully that's answered a few of your questions. I don't know whether it has. I'll probably have to go back to the video and actually figure out what you actually asked. But I could do another video straight after this. In fact, I probably will, because there's a lot to talk about at the moment, and there's been a lot of interesting questions. But I'll leave this video alone, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Have a good one.